He is one of the most powerful men in the world. For decades, he has shaped the politics of an entire country. His decisions have influenced wars, alliances, and the direction of global power. For some, he is a symbol of strength and stability. A leader who brought order to a nation once on the brink of collapse. For others, he represents control, authority, and a system where power is tightly held. But who is Vladimir Putin really? And how did an ordinary boy from Leningrad rise to become one of the most influential and controversial figures of modern history? The early years. Vladimir Putin was born in 1952 in Leningrad, a city that carried deep scars from World War II. Today, it is known as St. Petersburg, but at the time, it was still rebuilding from devastation. His childhood was far from luxurious. Putin grew up in a small communal apartment, sharing space with other families. Life was simple. Resources were limited. Privacy barely existed. But environments like this often shape character. From an early age, Putin developed a sense of discipline. He was not known as the biggest or strongest child, but he was determined. He found his path through sports, particularly judo and sambo. These weren't just physical activities. They were about control, strategy, and mental focus. Judo, especially, became a lifelong influence. It taught him patience, timing, the ability to wait and act at the right moment. And even as a young boy, he had ambitions that went beyond his surroundings. He didn't just want to survive his environment. He wanted to rise above it. The path to the Secret Service. As he grew older, Putin's interests became more defined. He was fascinated by intelligence work, the idea of operating behind the scenes, influencing outcomes without being seen. After studying law at Leningrad State University, he took a decisive step. He joined the KGB, the Soviet Union's main security and intelligence agency. This wasn't just a job. It was an entry into a world built on secrecy, strategy, and control. During his time in the KGB, Putin was trained in surveillance, intelligence gathering, and psychological discipline. He learned how to read situations, and more importantly, how to control them. One of the most defining periods of his KGB career came when he was stationed in East Germany, in the city of Dresden. This was during the final years of the Cold War, a time when political tensions were high and the future of the Soviet system was uncertain. And then, everything changed. In 1989, the Berlin Wall fell. The Soviet Union began to collapse. For many officers, this was a moment of confusion. For Putin, it was a moment of realization. He witnessed firsthand what happens when a powerful system loses control. And that lesson would stay with him. The rise to power. After the collapse of the Soviet Union in 1991, the entire political landscape of Russia changed. Old systems disappeared almost overnight. New ones were unstable, uncertain, and often chaotic. Putin returned to Leningrad and entered politics, working under the city's mayor. It was a quiet beginning. Behind the scenes, administrative roles, strategic positions. But this was where he learned the mechanics of governance, how power moves, how decisions are made, and how influence is built. In the years that followed, Putin moved to Moscow and gradually climbed the political ladder. He worked within the presidential administration, gaining trust and recognition. Then came the turning point. In 1999, Boris Yeltsin, the president of Russia at the time, made a surprising decision. He appointed Vladimir Putin as prime minister. To many, this was unexpected. Putin was not widely known by the public. He was not a charismatic public figure. He was not a political showman. But within months, everything changed. At the end of 1999, Yeltsin resigned. And suddenly, Vladimir Putin became acting president of Russia. A rapid rise, one that very few could have predicted. Presidency and power politics. When Putin officially became president in 2000, Russia was facing serious challenges. The economy was unstable. The country's global influence had weakened. Internal conflicts were ongoing. His approach was clear from the beginning. Restore order, rebuild strength, reassert control. Putin moved quickly to centralize power. He He strengthened the role of the federal government and reduced the influence of regional leaders. The goal was stability, but also control. Under his leadership, Russia experienced economic growth, particularly in the early 2000s. Rising energy prices helped fuel recovery. Living standards improved for many citizens. But alongside this progress came criticism. Media freedoms were reduced. Political opposition faced increasing pressure. The balance between stability and freedom became a central debate, both inside Russia and internationally. Putin's leadership style was direct, calculated, often described as strategic rather than emotional. He was not trying to be liked. He was trying to be effective. Influence on the world. Vladimir Putin's impact extends far beyond Russia's borders. Over the years, he has played a key role in shaping international events, from military involvement in regions like Ukraine and Syria to building strategic partnerships with other global powers. His decisions have influenced energy markets, security alliances, and the overall balance of geopolitical power. To some, Putin represents a leader who challenges Western dominance, a figure willing to act independently regardless of global pressure. To others, his actions have contributed to instability, ongoing conflicts, and rising tensions between major nations. Sanctions imposed by Western countries have further deepened this divide, making relations between Russia and much of the world increasingly complex. But one thing remains clear: when Putin makes a move, the world pays attention. A polarizing figure. Few modern leaders are as polarizing as Vladimir Putin. Supporters see him as a strong and decisive leader, someone who restored national pride and brought stability after a period of chaos. In their view, he represents order, control, and a return to strength. Critics, however, see a very different picture. They point to restrictions on political opposition, concerns about press freedom, and a system where power is heavily concentrated at the top. These opposing perspectives are what define his legacy. He is not universally admired, nor universally condemned. Instead, he exists in a space where perception depends entirely on perspective, and that is what makes him such a complex and debated figure, the man behind the image. Beyond politics, Putin has carefully shaped his public image. Images of him practicing judo, riding horses, or engaging in outdoor activities are not random, they are deliberate. They are designed to project strength, control, and endurance. But behind that image is a man who rarely reveals emotion in public. A leader who prefers strategy over spectacle. He speaks carefully, acts deliberately, and maintains a level of mystery that reinforces his presence on the global stage. Because sometimes what is not shown can be just as powerful as what is. Conclusion. Vladimir Putin is more than just a politician. He is a product of history, of a system that collapsed and a country that needed rebuilding. A man shaped by discipline, secrecy, and strategy, from a modest childhood in Leningrad to the highest level of global power. His journey is not just about leadership. It is about control, influence, and the ability to navigate a world that is constantly shifting. And no matter how he is viewed, whether as a strong leader or a controversial figure, his impact on modern history is undeniable. The real question is, how will history remember him? A strategist who rebuilt a nation, or a leader who reshaped power in ways the world is still trying to understand? Let me know what you think. And if you want more stories like this, don't forget to like and subscribe.